Hi, I'm Bob Tapper, and I spent over 25 years in corporate real estate in California until I decided it was time for something completely different. Now I live in Portugal, and this podcast is here to help you do the same, covering everything from visas, housing, and insurance to culture and community, what day-to-day life is really like here. And through it all, one thing has always remained true: it's never too late, you're never too old. Be courageous and honor your passions. Welcome to Life Abroad in Portugal. Hey there, and welcome back to the podcast. If you've been listening for a while, you might notice something a little different. Yep, the name has changed. The podcast used to be called Life Abroad, and it started as a documentary travel podcast, and for 5 years, I recorded episodes that followed my journey month by month, beginning all the way back to January of 2020. And at that time, it was mainly for friends and family, as a way to share what I was experiencing on the road, especially during those early days when everything was new. But now, life has changed. I've decided to settle down in Portugal, specifically in Porto. And that decision shifted everything. The process I went through to get my D7 passive income visa here in Portugal was a big one. And I realized that sharing that story might actually help others who are thinking about moving here as well. So with that, the podcast is also evolving, and it's now called Life Abroad in Portugal. From here on out, I'll be diving into what it's really like to move to and live in Portugal, things like the visa process and the changes that are happening to it, finding housing, insurance, business, tax information, and simply adjusting to life here in Portugal. I hope to have guests and experts to keep us all updated on everything. I'll still keep it personal and real, but now it's geared towards helping you if you're considering making the move yourself. So thanks for being here, and let's get into it. Let me take you back to late 2024, just under a year ago. It was December 1st, and I had just landed here in Portugal, specifically in Porto, for what I thought was going to be a 3-month stay. But in the back of my mind, I knew that I had to start thinking beyond that because there's Airbnbs to book, airline flights to consider. So what was 2025 going to look like? You know, honestly, I wasn't too excited about going back to the UK again. It's expensive. I couldn't legally work there because I couldn't open a bank account. I couldn't qualify for a visa. If you don't have a visa, you can't get a bank account. Housing, very expensive. I had to share a place just to make it work. You know, and don't get me wrong, I loved the acting opportunities that I had there. Everything that I found over the past few years, acting-wise, was so much fun. But getting paid and building a career and a life, that was tough. Then something shifted, because when I landed in Portugal and arrived in Porto on December 1st, and I'm not kidding, something just hit me. I felt at home immediately. It'd been almost 4 years since I was last in Porto, back in 2021 during COVID, and I remembered how much I loved it then. I even thought about settling here at that time, but it was a little too early in my journey. I had more to see, more to experience, so I just kept traveling. But fast forward to now, and yeah, I've traveled a lot, and I wouldn't trade that journey for anything. But it felt like something was changing, and maybe it was time to start putting down some roots again. And that sunny day in September, I remember texting to a friend that I had spent time with here in Porto, and we were here together in 2021, and I texted him about how exciting it was to be back and how much I just felt so at home and I loved being back. And he texted back and he said, maybe you should think about moving there. And I thought, maybe I will. So I met with an immigration consultant and I laid out my situation, and as it turns out, I qualified for a D7 passive income visa. Just like that, a new journey began. Step 1 was booking an appointment with VFS, the Visa Facilitation Services. They have 3 locations in the U.S., San Francisco, Miami, and Washington, D.C. And the closest one to my family was in D.C., so I already had plans to head back to the States to visit them in late February, so we made the appointment during that trip. My consultant handled the scheduling, and the appointment was set. It gave me about 2.5 months to get everything ready. Sounds simple, but there were some hurdles. Some of the documents, actually most of the documents, are quite easy to gather. Bank statements, tax returns, things like that. But here are a few of the tricky ones for me. Number 1 was opening a Portuguese bank account. Number 2, securing a 1-year rental agreement. And number 3, getting my fingerprints taken and apostilled for the FBI background check. So, first of all, the bank account. Before I could even open a bank account, I needed what's called a NIF number. It's NIF. It's basically a Portuguese tax ID number. My consultant offered that service to get me that number and also recommended me to a bank, which was really helpful because you just can't walk into a bank and open an account if you're not a Portuguese resident or citizen. So we got the ball rolling. Things in Portugal, I've learned, move a little bit slower than I'm used to. They'd send me an email and want some information, and I'd respond back within minutes. And then I'd wait a day or two for their response. And I'm thinking, wait, you just emailed me and I just responded. Did you already move on to the next piece of business already? But I guess they did. And I get it. People are busy. But I was just anxious to keep things moving. It took about a month. The holidays were in there, so I had Christmas and New Year's. But eventually, about a month later, I had my NIF number, had my bank account open. I transferred the funds from my U.S. bank into my new Portuguese account in order to meet the VFS requirements. And that was it. So this took place probably between mid-December and mid-January. But I finally had my account open, I had it funded, and I was ready for the next step. And next up was the 1-year apartment rental. So the lease was actually a little bit easier than I had expected. Here's a little tip. I found an apartment on Airbnb that I really liked. I contacted the host and I asked if they'd consider a 1-year lease, and they said yes. We signed a proper rental agreement in both English and Portuguese with a move-in date of March 1st. So I did this in early January, and it worked out because they had the apartment rented in February to tourists and whatever. So after March 1st, the calendar was clear, so we started at March 1st. Now, you can walk into real estate offices here in Porto and in Portugal to rent an apartment, but a couple of the challenges that I ran up against is that, number one, many real estate agents make little or no money from a 1-year rental agreement, so you're not really an exciting prospect to them. And number two, if you did find a place that you liked, the landlord, the owner, would probably want first month's, the last month's, and a security deposit, which is equal to a month's rent. So that can add up and that can get a little costly. And then on top of that, most only accept bank transfer for payment. And at that time, I didn't have my bank account open yet. So getting them to take a credit card, there were fewer of them that did that. Just know that you've got a couple of choices. You can go into a real estate office and try to work that out there, or you can maybe go through Airbnb because that really worked well for me. Bank account open and funded, rental agreement in place, 2 down, 1 to go. Third one was the FBI background check and fingerprinting. That was a little bit tricky, but it was only because I was here in Portugal. And the only place that I could get fingerprints taken here was at the U.S. Embassy in Lisbon. So I made an appointment. It's about a 2.5 hour train trip from Porto. Went down there for the appointment. It took a couple of weeks to get the appointment, but it was really easy. I walked in and fingerprints were taken, walked out with the prints, and then I overnighted them to the FBI. And once I had the results, which took maybe a couple of weeks, I found a U.S. company that would apostille them. And luckily, they all accepted the email documents. I paid extra for expedited service because now it's late January, kind of approaching February. All that was done by early February. I had everything checked off my list. I had the bank account. I had the funds transferred. I had the lease signed. And I had my background check and apostille done. So I was ready. And all that was left was to fly back to the U.S., go to my VFS appointment in D.C. at the end of February. My 90-day tourist visa in Portugal was still valid through the end of February because you have 90 days. I got here on December 1st. Roughly takes you through the end of February. I was leaving mid-February. I had a couple weeks left on the visa, so that all worked in my favor. Off I went back to the U.S. to visit family and attend my VFS appointment in D.C. Everything was ready to start this next big chapter. The first meeting was set, and I'm on my way, and that's where the journey officially began. And if you want to find out what happened next at the VFS meeting, it's all in the next episode. Hey, thanks for listening to Life Abroad in Portugal. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. I'd love to hear from you. Leave a quick review, tap some stars, or just reach out and say hello. You can also find more at lifeabroadinportugal.com, including details on my monthly meetups here in Porto and how to book a one-on-one consultation if you're planning to move. All the links are in the episode notes, and I really appreciate you being here.